Welcome, everyone, to the Unshakeable Courage Show. I am your host, Kim Glass, and our show focuses on helping others face reality, release your fears, and live with power. Did you know in a recent survey, even ahead of the pandemic, 84% of people live with an irrational fear that's keeping them awake at night and unable to achieve their personal and their business goals. So, our show is all about helping you to understand what may be blocking you, understand what fear may be holding you back, and educating you on how to break free and reach that goal that you have maybe had on your vision board, or you've just had it in your heart that someday you want to reach that goal. So, thank you so much for joining us. I am super excited. We have a fabulous group of special guests joining us today. And you know what I love about them is, we actually met along my own personal journey of courage. And I'm super excited to get you introduced to them. So, without any further ado, let's bring our special guest on. Our first guest coming in is Shanna Lee Moore. Following her is Missy Holder and the always fabulous Linda Sunshine West. Thank you guys for being here with us today. It's so great to see everyone. I'm super excited to share with you, to our listeners. When I think about overcoming and I meet people along my journey, I'm so intrigued by the idea of, oh my goodness, how did they do that? How did this person overcome this fear when I see them out there living a great life, inspiring and motivating other people? And that's why I love this show, because I get to be a little bit behind the scenes and peek in on finding out and uncovering, how did you do that? So we're going to get started. And Shanna, I'd love for you to unmute. Will you share with us, what was a period of your time and what was the adversity that you personally overcame?
I've had so many adversaries. More recently, I had a little bit of depression that crept back in last year with some of the isolation that COVID brought us. My first career path has been a massage therapist. And so not being able to see my clients or be in physical proximity with others was really disheartening for me. Before that, I have in my younger teenage and early adult life had substance abuse and domestic violence issues. So I've overcome some of those hurdles. And that's really where my motivation to be an entrepreneur came from, was to really just give my kids a better life or more opportunity. And as a single mom, working for someone else wasn't always going to give us the income or the time freedom or the opportunities to really have that quality family time together.
Thank you so much for sharing. What I hear a little bit about in your story, and we often talk about this on the show, is patterns, and patterns that are passed down maybe from one previous generation or multiple previous generations. And so I'm always in awe and inspired of those people like yourself that say, you know what, I'm doing something different. And in doing that something different, I know the work that it personally takes to shift. And so I thank you so much for sharing. And I know we're going to hear some more incredible insights from you to help our listeners today. So thank you, Shanna Lee.
Thank
And
you for
Missy
having
Holder, if
us.
you would unmute and share with us, what was that adversity that you overcame?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Kim. It's so good to be here. I I wanted to share a little bit about my adversity. Back in 2005, I had, at the time, my kids were 7 months old and 6 and 8 years old, and my husband was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And they told him he had a 25% chance of surviving. So I have to say that moment when that your life sort of shifts on its axis and everything changes for you, that was pivotal for me. I had allowed fear and worry pretty much dictate my life. I honestly kind of perceived incorrectly that worrying about people was my sign that I loved them. You know, I worry about you because I care about you. And honestly, when that happened, it was too big for me to carry. I could no longer carry that crushing weight of all of the worry that was associated with that experience. And so it transformed my life. Not that I would ever want to go through it again, because I certainly wouldn't, but I am the person that I am because of having gone through it. So that's a little brief bit about my story. And I'm super happy to share it with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Missy. And it's so true, as we talked about with Shanna Lee, sometimes there's patterns of behavior that have been passed down just naturally, right? Like natural progression, and then you're able to switch. But so powerful and equally powerful is the unexpected. And what do we have to do when something totally unexpected happens and we feel that fear rush in like from nowhere? And so thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And then Linda Sunshine West, some of you know that Linda and I met well over 4 years ago. We were at a networking event in all wonderful places of Las Vegas. And it's so interesting that, fast forward several years later, we've stayed connected. We're networkers at heart. We love building connected communities and inspiring entrepreneurs along the way. And I know she has faced some incredible adversity and has overcome, and would love for you to share with us, Linda, as well.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for having us, on this episode of Unshakable Courage. It's interesting, the word adversity, because when I look at that word, I think about my own life, right? And then I hear somebody else tell their adversities. And what happens oftentimes is we might start to compare ourselves to their adversities and say, theirs was much harder than mine, so what am I whining about or whatever? These are some of the things that I've gone through in my life. And I realized that, through my own journey, this entrepreneurial journey, especially, which started at age 51, is that, that comparison is the thief of the joy. The comparison is the thief of me being able to, really own my own life. And, I was talking to somebody one day about adversity, and they just like lashed out at me and said, you don't even know what it's like to go through what I went through. And I like, you're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to go through what I went through. And here's the thing is when we talk about adversity, whatever it is that I went through, I grew up in a very volatile, abusive, alcoholic household, which I'm finding a lot of people grew up in that kind of situation. But what's different is the way that I myself interpreted that life, interpreted that situation. There's a lot of people that we know that go through that kind of lifestyle that are extremely successful today. Then there's other people that we know that went through that kind of lifestyle who are, homeless and don't have anybody. So it's really the way I interpreted my life that determined what I was going to become and who I was going to become. Fortunately and unfortunately, it took me 51 years to figure all that out. But fortunately, because my mom, when my dad passed away, my mom, the first word she said was, "Thank God the bastard is dead." So I look at that and I see how my mom spent so many decades living with a man, 55 years, that she absolutely hated. She didn't want to be in that relationship, but she didn't know how to leave. So I myself grew up in that behavior, and that's what I became until I realized that that wasn't the way to live, right? So for me, as far as adversity goes, it's what we do with the situation that creates who we are. I used to be a person who would blame others for my misgivings, and I would also credit others for my successes. But I've learned to realize that I'm responsible for my own life. And so it's turning that adversity into something that really propels us to move us forward. I believe that is what gives us the strength that we have and that we're going to be talking about today. So thanks so much, Kim, for having us here today.
Thank you, Linda. I love your story. And every time I hear it, I envision myself getting in the driver's seat of my life. And, that's the powerful thing about self leadership. And I often say we're all on the same journey. We're just at different stops along the way. And so oftentimes what happens is it's easier for us to give other people grace, but we have to remember to give ourselves grace, because the greatest thing is we've been through that adversity. I'm sure that you would agree with me that we've learned from that adversity. And as a result of that, we're so much stronger, and we can also help people from that position. And so I think that's a powerful thing about sharing our story. I was just on another show just before hopping over here, and I was talking about how my book, Unshakable Courage, I had the title of that book 15 years before it was published, but I didn't want to just tell my story. I wanted to help people roadmap themselves away from fear. And so by sharing my story and then providing that roadmap, I can help people break free from fear, because I'm on a mission to do that, because I don't believe anyone should live in fear. And so that's the power of your story. And I thank you all so much for sharing that. And as Linda mentioned, being authors and sharing your entrepreneurial story. And so what I'd like to do is move into and ask each one of you, what is your business today and how are you helping other people? And I'm also interested in our listeners understanding is what you're doing today and how you're helping other people, a byproduct of your journey and breaking free from fear. So Shanna Lee, if you would unmute yourself and go first, would love to hear more about your business as well.
Thank you so much. So I'm still a massage therapist. I've been licensed and certified since 2007. And it was a natural talent that I had. I used to massage friends and family growing up, and I was always really good at finding the knots. And so when I was a single mom with my oldest daughter, I decided I would go back to school and get properly trained so that I could make that my career. And the satisfaction I get from relieving pain is just one of the best things ever. And now when I was doing massage, I was introduced to a wonderful woman who became a friend and business partner and mentor of mine. And she introduced me to the water technology that I share with people. Now, if you've ever had a massage before, you know you have to hydrate afterwards to flush all the toxins out so you don't get too sore or achy. And once I learned that there was actually different types of water available that were better for the body, I felt it would be a disservice to my clients if I was not at least educating them on something that I found to be a better option. And it really helps the body balance itself internally so it can work internally while I'm working externally on the muscles. And part of the mission of that company is true health. So that's why that business I called Developing True Health. And for us, true health has more than just the physical aspects. We have relational and spiritual aspects, and we have financial aspects. And if any of those things are out of balance or not complementing one another, you're not living to your full potential or having the best quality life available. So I know for me, I wasn't taught how to be an entrepreneur growing up. That's not something that they teach you in school or that my parents knew about. I knew a little bit because my mom ran a daycare from our home for some time to be able to be with us. And they made, fudge for the holidays a little bit, and then she started her own cleaning business later on after I was a little bit more grown up. But that's still more on the self-employed employee side of the quadrant. And to really learn about being a business owner or an entrepreneur and getting some more systematic leveraged income in place that really can free up our time and energy. And then to be able to teach that to my kids and to anyone else who is looking for a way out. a lot of times we're stuck in this financial matrix and we don't understand how money works or how to get ahead. Or so many people say they're paycheck to paycheck, and that just breaks my heart if they were to have an emergency and I see a GoFundMe page on Facebook because they don't have any reserves available to pull from. And so part of that creative out of the box thinking, when I connect with people and I ask them, what are your dreams? What would you accomplish if you thought you could? If no wasn't an answer that stopped your brain from getting creative, how is this possible? What does light you up? What does turn you on? I've written poetry since I was 12 years old. And my dream is really to have my own book of poems. I wanted to start here because I was learning from Linda and her experience about how the book process even works. And I got to include one of my poems in my chapter to introduce people to my poetry and my style. And then if people want to, hear more from me later, I'm happy to write more poems or do more speaking events or whatever it takes to share that with people. I like to write for people. Sometimes it's a way of processing through emotions, and really, I don't know if I speak very eloquently, but I know that when I write, it comes out with a lot of grace and flow. And so I feel that it's very special if someone comes to my mind or my heart and I'm able to share that with them. Not everybody's love language is words. Mine isn't even really words, but I think that when you speak, it's very powerful. And when you can connect with someone on a heart level and really inspire them or make a difference. We don't even know how many people we impact in a day or a year or a lifetime, but there's that ripple effect, and to just always try to leave something better than we found it. So I thank you for that question.
Thank you, Shanna Lee. And then will you share with us, how can our listeners connect with you? Do you have a website? Where's the best way to connect?
Yeah, so the website is developingtruehealth.com, and that will share videos and information about the water. It has my contact information there. My full name, Shanna Lee Moore, on both Instagram and Facebook. You can connect with me there. I have business pages for the Justice Massage and Developing True Health if you just want to connect on that level. I do start conversations with people. So if you send me a friend request and you get a message from me, like, why would you like to connect? Then that's how I make sure it's not spam or something, but yeah, really getting those quality connections. I love helping and serving people. I love how Linda's the queen of collaboration. And so some of my friends have joked and called me the queen of contacts because I know a lot of people. And a lot of times someone will be talking and they need something or they have an idea. And I'm like, oh, you should meet this friend of mine, or you should meet that person. And so I really love being able to connect people. And it's great because recently my circles have started to overlap, and I'll be in a group and somebody else knows somebody else and I didn't do the introduction. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How do you guys know each other? So it's super fun. I'm glad that in-person things are starting to come back because I love the Zooms, and it's nice to be able to meet people all over the world this way, but there's another dynamic when you get in person. You can give hugs and things.
Yes, Shanna Lee, thank you so much. And I love what you're doing, because what I'm hearing is you've tapped into a lot of the self-care area, and then you're also helping people, with your writing. So the expression, and a lot of times, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, a wonderful upcoming collaboration book, but sometimes it's hard for us to get started. But once we get started, we can actually get into that flow. So thank you so much for sharing all about you and what you're doing, and love connecting as well. And just like yourself, I'm a real people person, and I will tell you, during the pandemic, there were days that I drove out to the grocery store just to sit in the parking lot and to watch people, because that's where I fuel my energy, when I'm around people. And so I'm so glad that things are opening up for your business, and so appreciate you sharing with us today. And Missy Holder, will you share with us what is your business and how you're helping people?
Sure. So I am a personal growth coach, and I help women, particularly those in midlife, overcome their limiting beliefs, such as fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, perfectionism, overthinking, all of the things that hold us back and keep us from being able to chase our dreams and achieve our goals. So I think the big thing that I learned from my struggles, so having gone through my husband's cancer diagnosis, I was allowing worry and fear to drive my life. And after that, I decided I'm going to live with intention and purpose. And that's where my business was born out of. So I want to help other women to achieve their power and purpose, and live their lives with intention. I work with people to go through a process where they discover what are their dreams and goals and what are their core values. What do they want their life to look like? Because when you have all of those things lined up, there's an incredible synergy that occurs that fuels passion, purpose, joy. All of these things flow out from that. So that's what I want to help women achieve. And of course, when you go through that sort of process, and you're going to come across limiting beliefs. And so we'll tackle each of those individually as they come along. So any woman that wants to really step into her purpose, say your child is going off to college and you have an empty nest and you feel like I have so much more to give, talk to me, like let's talk, let's figure out what your next steps are. So that's a little bit about what I do. If people want to find me, I have a website. It's missyholder.com. And I have a Facebook group, the Imperfect Action Takers. So what I've discovered along the way, I feel like I've discovered the secret is, there have been times in my life where I've been paralyzed, literally paralyzed. I've got to listen to another podcast, read another book, then I'll feel ready, or talk to the right person, then I'll feel ready to take action. And what I realized was I'm never going to feel ready. I'm never going to feel ready. I just need to start moving. And so I give myself grace and permission to take imperfect action. And that little movement allows me to create momentum, which creates results, which then just starts the spiral, right? The momentum goes, and it's just so powerful. So I feel like I've discovered a secret. I know it's Linda, you've always talked about that too. She's the action taker queen. So I'm right there with you on that one. So I have the Imperfect Action Takers on a Facebook group. And then I'm also on Instagram, missy.holder.growth.coach. So you can find me there. I'm on Clubhouse, just as my name. So those are all the places you can find me, and I'd love to connect.
Awesome. Thank you, Missy. And it's so true. Like that second half of life, it's like, what do I do now? Who am I outside of what I've done in this profession? And so thank you so much for sharing what you're doing. Make sure our listeners that you're connecting with these incredible women. And then I'm bringing on Linda Sunshine West. She's going to share all the great things. I always try to keep up with her, and I think I'm doing pretty well, but I know behind the scenes there are things she's working on that even I do not know. So Linda, if you would share with us what you're doing in your business, how are you empowering these women action takers, and we'll let you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. And first, I just love what both Shanna and Missy were talking about. And what I found interesting is, see, Missy's title of her chapter is How I Kicked Fear and Worry Out of the Driver's Seat of My Life. And Kim, you talked about the driver's seat earlier. So I thought it was kind of fun. I was like, is that Kim's chapter? I thought it was someone else's. So I looked it up to see whose chapter had the driver's seat in it. And then we have Shanna's chapter is Faith Over Fear. This is the fearless entrepreneurs, right? We're talking about fear. And I love how that you were tying it all together about that facing of the fear. And then yours, Kim, the 7 promises of courage, right? Courage is the opposite of fear. And the thing about this entrepreneurial journey is if you are faint of heart, this is not a journey for you, because you're going to have lots of ups and downs. I've had more downs than I've had ups, but you know what keeps me going? It's that drive. It's that desire to do so much more, to mean more while I'm here. During my journey, I went through this process of discovering my purpose and my why. Why do I do what I do? What is my purpose for being on this planet? And as I was going down that journey and figuring all these different things out about myself, I hit on it, like my purpose. Why am I here? Well, the first 51 years of my life, I spent with a voice that was stifled. I was too scared to speak my truth because I had this tremendous fear of judgment. It was so strong, like Missy, I was paralyzed with fear. I wouldn't say anything because what if they didn't like me, or what if they thought I was stupid, or whatever it was? I wouldn't speak up. So at 51 years old, when I finally raised my hand and said something, I was at a meeting and I said something, I was shaking, my throat was all locked up and everything. But after I was done speaking those words, the two women sitting next to me said, "That was brilliant." And they used the word brilliant. "That was brilliant. Will you repeat it? I want to write it down." And it was in that exact moment that I had this epiphany that I am not stupid. I am not ignorant. I'm not all those things all those people in my past told me I was, that I am a brilliant person, because these women just told me that. Fortunately, I believed them in that moment, because I could have shrugged it off. But I believed them. And I said to myself, from this moment forward, I will share my voice every opportunity I get. This is why you'll see me speaking on stages. You'll see me raising my hand. You'll see me jumping up. It's not because I'm not scared. It's because I've made this commitment to myself to share my voice every opportunity, because there's somebody out there who needs to hear your voice, your story, your poem, whatever it is. So this journey, what's been absolutely amazing along the journey is when I wrote my first collaboration book, in which, Kim, you're in that one, Momentum, 13 Lessons from Action Takers Who Changed the World. It was really interesting to see the process that not only I was going through, but what everybody else was going through as well. And then when I came up the next two titles of my books, The Fearless Entrepreneurs and Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. By the way, these are all my story. Momentum, Invincible, Fearless, all of these are my stories. And they came to me, God sent the titles to me and said, do something with them or don't. You get to choose. And so as I'm going on this journey of these next collaboration books, the women are sharing their stories and sending me me emails like, wow, me telling my story is changing my life. So thank you so much for putting this together. So what this has done for me is it's solidified that, yes, I'm doing the right thing. I'm a community builder. I'm a connector, right? I love bringing people together. And this is one of the ways I can do that. But finding our strengths and then pulling it all together to say, this is what I do. This is what I do well. And I love doing it. And I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. What I believe this has done for me is it's helped me to figure out that life's purpose and then how I'm going to apply it to my business. And then what I do is I live on purpose every day. So what I do is I look for women who want to share their stories, who want to share their voice with the world. They're ready to put themselves in a book and videos, whatever. They are ready to share their voice. And then I help them do that. And it's such an honor and blessing and pleasure to be able to have discovered my purpose and to live every day on purpose and no longer on accident. And if people want to connect with me, go to womenactiontakers.com. And then I'm on Facebook. Just Google Women Action Takers. You'll find me everywhere. And then also my name, Linda with a Y, Linda Sunshine West. And by the way, Sunshine is not my given name. It's the name that was given to me after I started my entrepreneurial journey, where I started to change and became a different person because I figured out my purpose. So figure out your purpose. And once you figure that out, make it happen, and then live your entrepreneurial dream, helping people the way you want to help them. Thanks so much, Kim, for asking the question.
Yes, thank you, Linda. I love everything that you're doing. I'm a woman action taker. And, we mentioned earlier, if you can just get started, even if it's a small baby step in action, you can push that fear behind. And so what I want to ask you, each of you now, is what is one tip that you would leave with our listeners today that would help them in their entrepreneur journey? Maybe it's something from your chapter, or maybe it's one tip that you've learned along your entrepreneurial journey. So Shanna Lee, if you would unmute and just share with us one tip that you could leave with our listeners today about being a fearless entrepreneur.
Thank you. So like the other ladies have shared, it's getting into that action. So say yes and figure it out later. If you feel called to do something or an opportunity is given to you and all you need to do is just commit in your heart, and then the path will be lit in front of you. But if we continue to say no or to turn things down, then we're never really given the opportunity to see what we could have and grow into our full potential. It's like if we're playing on the monkey bars or watching kids, you have to really let go of the one behind you before you can swing and have that momentum to go forward. And if you don't, those are the ones that get stuck there and they can't move because they got too scared to let go. And if our hands are grasping something from our past, we're not able to allow our future blessings to come to us. And so there's a grieving process, sure. It's transition, it's growth. It's just like the caterpillar thinks its entire world is ending, but then it gets to emerge as a beautiful butterfly. So to trust the process, and if you need help or inspiration or encouragement, just know that there's others who have gone on this journey before you, and we are so excited to welcome you on this path. And we just love when new people join us. So just reach out to anyone who's done anything similar to what you want to do, and most of the time they'll love just connecting and having a conversation and sharing some wisdom with you. The world is not as
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was to say, the world is not as competitive as some people make it out to be. Really, a competitiveness.
So true.
Competitiveness comes from small-minded thinking, and really, there's enough abundance to go around for everyone.
I couldn't agree more on everything that you said. And for our listeners, Shanna Lee says, say yes and figure it out along the journey. So make sure that you write that down and you remember that when you're feeling fear, when you're looking at your blank calendar for the day and you're not sure how to get started, say yes to yourself and figure it out. I love that tip. Missy Holder, what tip would you share with our leaders today?
So I think that I love the title of the book, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, but I have to say that I don't feel fearless. So, Linda, of course, doesn't think that we feel fearless. So that's a misnomer or a misconception that you're going to feel fearless. I say to you who want to do something, do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway. That's true courage. That's true bravery. Because what courage is required, I mean, if you're really not fearful, right? How courageous is that? True courage is being afraid and doing it anyway. And so for me, I had to step into that fear, and because truly the pain of the regret, the potential regret of not having done it became greater than the pain of potential rejection, and all of the fears that I had to face along my journey. So that's my encouragement to people who have dreams and goals, is feel the fear, do it anyway.
Love that. Our listeners, make sure that you write that down from Missy. So important, not only in our personal life, but also as an entrepreneur along the journey, because, you know, if you think about a corporate office and you think about all the departments in there, those are things that we tackle every single day, or at least weekly or monthly in our entrepreneurial work. And I often say, if you don't know the skill or the ability, you need to either outsource that service or you learn it along the way by getting started and then adding it in. You know, we've talked about momentum, we've talked about habits, but that's how you blend it. You may still feel that fear. You know, we're going to bump up against things that take us back to that awful place where we felt that fear. But once that transcends into a habit, it's like when you get up in the morning without even thinking or looking at your calendar, I bet every one of you brushed your teeth. So if you can adopt those things that you need to learn in your business to where they're a habit before a feeling or a thought kicks in, then as Shanna Lee says, you just say yes and figure it out along the journey because you're taking that action. So very important. I love those two tips. And Linda, will you share with us a takeaway or a tip for our listeners today to help them on their fearless journey?
Yeah, this was tough because I agree with both of them. And as they were saying things, I was like, okay, I got to come up with something different, but it's really is about that fear. We're talking about the fearless entrepreneurs, and Missy's right. And there's nothing about being completely fearless, but like my chapter is called Fear from Fearful, FULL, to Fear Less. It's just really about fearing less. And so I'm just going to share really quickly a very easy 7-step process that I came up with to break through fears quickly. I faced a fear every single day in 2015. So 365 days of facing a fear. So I came up with this technique that really worked for me. About 6 months into, I was like, what am I doing here? I got to figure this out, right? So the technique is very simple, and just go ahead, take out your pen and paper and write this down. So what you're going to do is when you're facing a fear, first of all, you recognize that it's a fear. That's, first we have to recognize and acknowledge that we have a fear. Now, what is that fear? So what you're going to do is you're going to just write down or think to yourself these 7 simple questions. If I face this fear, name the fear. If I face blank, this fear right now, is it going to adversely affect my life 1 year from today? If I face this fear right now, is it going to adversely affect my life 1 year from today? The key word here, 2 keywords. If I face this fear right now, so now is one of the key words. The other keyword is adversely. Because if I face this fear right now, yes, it may affect my life. A year from today, it might be a lot better. But what I want to know, is it going to be a bad thing for you? So then you just go through this process 7 times. If I face this fear, again, insert your fear right now, will it adversely affect my life 6 months from today? And then we go down to 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, 1 hour, and right now. And what this does is it helps you to check into the reality. The reality is that if I do this, no, it's not going to affect my life adversely in a year. No, it's not going to adversely affect it in 6 months. And then if you can get all the way down to an hour, and after an hour, you say, it'll probably affect me in an hour, but you know what? In an hour, it'll be done. So what this has done is it's helped me to, like, now I can just say, if I face this fear right now, will it adversely affect me in a minute? And I always say no. Always. My answer is always no. And then so I just do it. So mine is to just do it because you're scared. I have the fear, and in spite of the fear, it's because I'm scared, I'm going to do it. Because every time we face fear, what happens is we enlarge that size of our comfort zone. Remember back to when you were first learning how to drive a car, and you were like 10 and 2, I got to keep my eyes on everything. Oh, how am I going to do this? This is impossible. And now you get in a car, you drive, and some people put on their makeup while they're driving, eating while you're driving. You do all these different things while you're driving. But guess what? It's because that fear that was so strong at the very beginning has now been minimized by the size of your comfort zone, which has grown, just astronomically. So enlarge the size of that comfort zone by facing fears, stepping through them because you're scared. When you do it because you're scared, your fear will minimize. It may never, ever go away. I have fears today. I faced the fear 365 days in a row. I still have fears. I'm a human being. But now I just blast through them quickly. I don't let them stop me anymore. Like, Missy and I were like paralyzed by fear, right? No longer. So that's what I say. 7 steps to breaking through those fears.
I love that, Linda. And, it's so true, because oftentimes, not in every case, but a lot of times the fear is not the reality, you know? In my case, when I thought about the worst fear that could happen to me, then I was like, well, that's crazy. That would never happen. So, I was able to let that fear go. And so I love what you said about, facing the reality and figuring out if that fear is even legitimate. And then if it's not, then let it go. Or if it is, I so love that when you talk about, is it relevant in a year? Is it relevant in X number of weeks? Is it relevant in a month? Is it relevant this week? Is it relevant in this hour? So powerful. And I think that's where you really get in tune with, how many more days, or many more hours am I going to spend in this fear to where I can shift that script? And that's the power of facing the reality. When you're able to get it down to, am I afraid of it this hour? And you realize that you're not, then you can let it go and you can flip the script and be done with that particular fear. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then Linda, I want to go back with you. So we've talked about fearless entrepreneurs. I'm super excited about this book. As you mentioned, I'm an author in one of the chapters, and I love the collaboration because it's another opportunity for me to connect with like-minded people and have the opportunity to really uplift and showcase the authors. And so I've been doing, oh gosh, I think my first collaboration book was probably over 10 years ago. And then once Linda started doing them, I was like, I want in on that. Like, what's the fear of missing out? Some people have the fear of missing out. And I'm like, I just want to be involved in anything that Linda is doing because we're so like-minded. We love connecting and we love uplifting and supporting entrepreneurs. And so just real quick, my tip would be as an entrepreneur to believe in yourself, because I will tell you, even if you have to fake it until you get there and you have to speak to your mirror every morning about, I believe in myself and I believe in my passion and what I'm doing. And I'm no longer asking people's opinions. Like, I am going in my passion to help other people. That belief in yourself will help that prospect connect with you in a much higher way, because I've seen it repeatedly. If you're not believing in yourself, it may not be verbalized, but those prospects that you're meeting will feel something's off. They may not be able to put their finger on it, but I believe they sense that you're not 100% 100% in your belief. And those entrepreneurs that have a deep belief in their business and the value that they provide, people can feel that. It's just like when you're feeling fear, people can feel something. And like I said, they may not be able to articulate it, but they can feel it. And that can make your prospect back away as well. So we talk about in networking, know me, like me, trust me. But if you look at that trust me aspects, that is a two-way street. So you have to trust yourself and you have to trust and help your prospect and client feel that you can get them past whatever that project or your coaching or whatever it is that they're looking for you to be the answer and the resource for. So that's my little 2+ cents on my tip for you today. And then I'm going to throw it back to Linda. So share with us, how did this book about fearless entrepreneurs come about? And tell us, I mean, we've heard a little bit about it and we've kind of teased it up on this broadcast, but tell us a little bit more about the book, and when is this fabulous book launching?
Well, the idea of the book actually, came to me. Again, I believe God sent it to me, and I believe He sends us things, and we get to decide what we're going to do with them. As humans that we are. And this title came to me a little bit after I had already faced a fear every day, and then I was in a collaborative book myself called Footsteps of the Fearless during that year of fears. And then after I was done with the year, my mentor said to me, his name is Greg Reed, which I know, Kim, Greg, said to me, so what are you going to do next? And I go, what do you mean? What am I going to do next? I think facing a fear every day is plenty. Why do I need to do something else? And he goes, no, you need to write a book about it. So I wrote a book called The Year of Fears. And then after that, I asked myself, what's my next natural state of progression? I was in a collaboration book. I wrote my own book, so I'm going to write my own collaboration book. And that's when the book Momentum, 13 Lessons from Action Takers Who Changed the World came up. Now, that was an interesting one because I didn't know anything about writing a collaboration book, but, like Missy said, just do it, just put yourself out there. And Shanna said that too, just put yourself out there and go do it. And so that's what I did. And I reached out to some people that I know really well, the founder of UGG Boots and the creator of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'm thinking of writing this book. Would you guys be in the book? Because they're definitely action takers who are changing the world. And they are like, yeah, of course, just tell me what I need to do. So right there, I knew that I had something that I needed to do. And then I was, took on the trek to find people to be in the book. And Kim, thank you so much for being part of that amazing book that we put together. And after that, well, actually, and during the process of that is when the title of The Fearless Entrepreneurs and The Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore, both of those titles came to me right about the same time. And it's interesting because I believe that the title Fearless Entrepreneurs came to me because I realized that by facing fear, this is what makes entrepreneurs different. It is a journey, definitely, to go on entrepreneurship. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of twists and turns, sideways, backwards, and all these things. But if you are not willing to break through fears on a regular, consistent basis, you'll probably not become a very good business owner, because you've got to break through those fears. There's a lot of fears that hold us back. So as myself, I was in the corporate world for 36 years. And in those 36 years, I had 49 jobs. And it was my fear that kept me in there. It was when I made that decision to break out of the corporate world and go do this on my own and figure it out, and not know how I didn't know how I was going to make any money, but I knew that I was no longer going to do that, And so it's through that breaking through and experiencing all those fears along the way and saying, you know what, I'm not going to let the fear stop me anymore. I think that's what made the difference. And for me, when I look at the entrepreneurs that I know, especially those I know a lot of multimillionaires and billionaires that I've met along my journey, which has been incredible. I'm not there yet, but I've met them and they've taught me how to go through these different challenges that I've been facing along the way. And they have given me that strength and that courage to keep going. So the title, The Fearless Entrepreneurs, it's really, I believe that anybody who is an entrepreneur is fearless, at least in that part of their world, because they're taking risks, they're taking challenges on themselves, and they're putting themselves out there and say, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to let anything else stop me from doing this and fulfilling this dream desire that I have. So that's how the Fearless Entrepreneurs came about. Then finding all the people to be in the books, like you three ladies here, being in this book, telling your story of how you've gone through ups and downs, but how you made it through them to keep going and have that desire and dream alive and just keep going after it.
That's so crucial, because I was just sharing with someone earlier today. Oftentimes we get into the situation where we're thinking, okay, this is exactly what I want to do as an entrepreneur, and I'm going to go from A to B. And so I tend to liken it more like a roller coaster, because you are multitasking, and your work-life balance looks different almost every single day, because you're taking on more, you're continuously learning, you're figuring out your calendar, you're figuring out how things mesh while you're reaching out for prospects, and you're networking, and you're having social media, all the things that it takes to be an entrepreneur. And so, if you can lean into that roller coaster ride, and we're talking about fear. Some days, yes, you got to throw your hands up and get on the other side, and take the action. And so I think it's so remarkable. I love learning from people along their journey, whether I'm behind them or maybe at the same pace of them, or even a little bit ahead of them. It's such a reminder of this fantastic opportunity that we have to live our passion and help people as a result of that. And then, Linda, will you share with us, how can our listeners, is there a website that you have? How can our listeners get a hold of this great book when it's released? And when is that released?
They can go to thefearlessentrepreneurs.com, thefearlessentrepreneurs.com to get a copy of the book. Right now we're doing pre-orders, and I'm not sure when this is going to be released, but the book will be released in August of 2021. I don't have an exact date yet. COVID has really done a number on the book publishing world. So we're shooting for a certain date, which I'm not going to tell because we probably won't come out that date. But it's been definitely an interesting ride. COVID has changed the way we do business. One thing I love about of things that, this last year and a half is that we've been able to connect with more people because more people are hopping onto these Zooms. But I'm really looking forward to getting this book out there into the public. Kim, you mentioned earlier that your book took 10 years. This idea came to me about 3 years ago. So it's in the process. I have already lined up 30 more titles. That after these 2 books get released, I got 30 titles that are already in the hopper and I'm ready to go. But as you mentioned, as an entrepreneur, we have to develop the systems, the processes, the team that's going to help us, and finding the right people is really one of those crucial aspects of it. So while you think that you have everything all together and everything's going great, something gets thrown in then the wrench, like a monkey wrench gets thrown into it and totally, flips you upside down. And then you're like, I got to figure this one out. That's the roller coaster ride that we're on. So anyway, with that saying, the book is intended to be released in August of 2021. I know it will. I have faith. I have faith that it will. By the way, I came up with an acronym while I was facing fear every day that year. I used to hear these sayings of false evidence appearing real. And I looked at that and I said, there is nothing false about this. Like, I am feeling this fear big time. It's not false at all. So I came up with faith erases anxious reactions, because I noticed that when my faith was strong, my fear was weak. And when my fear was strong, my faith was weak. So one of the things I also do now is I ask myself, when I'm feeling fear, I'll ask myself in the third person, Linda, how strong is your faith right now? And oh my gosh, I just caught myself. My faith is not strong right now. So I need to flip that switch and move into faith and just, go through it knowing that I've got faith that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. I'm either going to learn from it or it's going to be fantastic, right? So that's one way to look at it.
Fantastic. And I know whenever this book releases, it's going to be at the right time for the right people and the fearless entrepreneurs that need to hear and read these words. Such a powerful. I love the title of this book, but I'm also loving meeting the authors of this book, hearing their stories. I can't thank you all enough for sharing your adversity with us today. Channelie, Misty, and Linda, there's no doubt that we were brought together for this time to share our journey, what we've been through, to help our listeners today to face that reality, release that fear, and ultimately live with power. So I thank you all so much for being here. I know we're going to stay connected, and you'll be seeing all of us across social media, letting you know when this book is released. So make sure that you connect with all of our special guests today and stay connected with them to watch what is going on. Thank you so much for being here. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining in today on the Unshakable Courage Show. Be sure and invite your friends and join us next time, where we interview another special guest or two, or maybe like today, 3. But we're so excited to provide insights, tools, and connections to help you live in unshakable courage, because I believe no one should live in fear. We'll see you next time. Thank you again for joining us.